Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Scott Luton and special guest host Constantine Limberakis with you here on Supply Chain. Now, welcome to today's live stream. Constantine, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Good weekend. Got a great show teed up here today. Are you ready? And of course, we should say Constantine, aka Dino, and there's a few other nicknames, right?
The
Uh,
pseudonyms that you are famous for, Scott. They love them.
cheesy, hokey, whatever y'all want to call me. But Greg White is on a very studious assignment, don't you think, Constantine?
I'd say Europe is always studious.
Well, safe travels wherever Greg may be, and we'll welcome him back in a week or so. All right, so Constantine, we got a lot to get to here today. Of course, it's the Supply Chain Buzz, a live show that comes at you every Monday at 12 noon Eastern Time. As always, we're going to be discussing a wide variety of news and developments really across the global business scene. And Constantine, on a much more serious note, we have a special guest joining us about right around 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time today, as Mary Kate Soliva will join us to discuss the ongoing disastrous scene in Guam and how you can help. Constantine, that was already in the green room in the pre-show. She shared some eye-opening observations, huh?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just the situation there. Like in any place when there's a natural disaster, it's terrible. Especially when it's something that's related to the United States, and it's raising awareness, I think, is key. So I think you're doing a great job in helping promote that.
Well, and Constantine, we're going to touch more on that. That awareness piece is so key. And, some things when you type in a topic in Google or your favorite search engine, you get hundreds of recent news stories to inform you and give you information or whatever. And then others, you do the same thing. And there is just a dearth of information, especially timely recent information. So y'all stay tuned about 12:30 as Mary Kate Soliva joins us here. Okay. And finally, hey, we want to hear from y'all as well. So as we see Sushil and Jacob and others, please share your comments, your take, you name it, in the cheap seats. And we're going to be sharing that throughout the conversation here today. And Constantine, if folks are listening to this podcast replay, maybe they ought to consider joining us live here on LinkedIn or YouTube or whatever other social media channel of your choosing is. We'd love to hear from you. Constantine, what is your favorite social media site, channel, platform?
I don't know. I'd have to probably say LinkedIn. Part of it because I remember joining this back in the day. It was like 2006 or something, way before anybody had really thought of it. And I was thinking, it's a great way to share your profile. It became the digital resume, and I now think it's just the status quo, right? So is it a true social media? I guess I don't know how you define that, but to me that would be it. And obviously Twitter, that's taken its whole thing, but I think LinkedIn for me.
Well, the term social media has evolved tremendously since the beginning, whenever that was, and continues to evolve tremendously. But LinkedIn that's where most folks join us for the buzz each week. So I think that's probably you're in a big crowd that perhaps put LinkedIn atop their social media favorites. All right, hey, speaking of which, as I mentioned, we have Sushil tuned in. Hey, let us know where you're tuned in from. Of course, you're via LinkedIn, so great to have you here today. We've got Jacob from Mombasa, Kenya, also via LinkedIn. Great to see you, Jacob. We have got Jose. Jose, great to see you. Jose Montoya from Southern California, I believe, Jose. And also has a great show on supply chain and logistics. You ever caught any of his content yet, Constantine?
No, but I definitely been interested to do so. So send that over. Take a look.
Got to. That's right. Let's see here. Prof. Tiwi. I hope I got that right. If I didn't, let us know. It's important to get names right. As I like to tell folks, my last name is Luton, but it's been pronounced, at least on the first day of school for my entire life, Luton, right? And that's always seared a need to get everyone else's name right. So Prof. Tiwi, great to see you here via LinkedIn from Indonesia. All right. So Constantine, We're going to share a couple of quick resources with folks. Give me one. So you're Chicago's home base.
Yes.
Are you in? Is this like is it still kind of cool in Chicago here in the first week of June?
We have reached the turning point in Chicago's weather where now everybody's out and you've seen your neighbors for the first time in months. I'm not kidding. There's like a phenomenon in Chicago where like you don't see people for months and then all of a sudden everyone comes out. The barbecues have started. And the other thing that we always say in Chicago is there's two seasons, winter and construction. I'm not kidding. It's all the potholes that they're filling in because of all the salt that we get. So
hey, I believe it. I experienced some of that. I think when Clay and I headed up in Chicago, coming back and forth to the airport, we hit. In fact, coming back from the airport, as we were trying to arrive on time to get through security and all, the our Uber driver was driving a Tesla and said he had like 1 hour of battery life. And I looked at Clay. I'm like, man, what does that mean? And are we going to make it? So, rest assured, Clay made sure we got there. But anyway, and this is so I think this is and big thanks to Amanda and Catherine behind the scenes. Supply chain now, probably Amanda says that's funny. Constantine, Atlanta has 2 seasons, but they're summer and construction. Agreed. All right. So let's change gears, and I want to add something over the weekend. So with that said, folks, y'all may have seen this a time or two. I think this was episode 36 of our LinkedIn newsletter, and we really focused, Constantine, on finding great ideas amidst all the noise. There's tons of noise out there, right? Tons of noise. So we offered a really interesting, probably 7 or 8 item list. Along with a few other things. So did you happen to catch that, Constantine?
Not this time around, but I'm going to definitely look at it in the next one.
All right. So, Dino, we're going to have to start giving you a homework list on Fridays before the buzz. Now, check that out. In fact, hey, Amanda and Catherine are making it easy on us. We got the link here. Folks can check it out. And y'all tell us what you think. We've had a lot of interesting feedback, Constantine, as we've had, I think we're approaching 22,000 subscribers. How about that?
Oh, wow. It's impressive.
All right, going back to Jacob and social media. Jacob says he thinks by far LinkedIn is his favorite social media platform because it's easier to organize, have quality circle meetings where we can interact and share our views on the development of our work as a team. Jacob, I love that that real practical use of social media, Constantine.
Yeah. One thing I actually discovered one day when I was doing a meeting with some colleagues back in the day in Munich is you can actually do meetings through LinkedIn too. So there's a lot of things that they're developing on that platform. And the other thing that I like about it is the LinkedIn learning. I've talked to people where they're leveraging that now in the format of ongoing certification and learnings. And so it's really become so that's my point is what is social media then? And is that just a platform for everything? So it's cool.
Agreed. And Jonathan, a longtime member of our community, he echoes what you're saying and learn. Yes. Learn. Jonathan, hope this finds you well. And you can tell with his certifications, Jonathan is a constant, active, lifelong learner. Hope this finds you well, Jonathan. Now, Catherine says TikTok is her favorite. I'm still, I think I tried to click. Well, you know what? I'm not going to tell myself. I'm still evaluating TikTok. How about you, Dino?
I am absolutely the same. I've tried to look at it and I said, you know what? I don't know, maybe it's a generational thing. It's the next thing, but no, I haven't explored it too much.
Well, I'm going to stick on that learning opportunity you mentioned because I want to make sure folks are aware. So tomorrow we have got another live session, a dedicated live session. Get this. I love this title: Faster, Cheaper, Better. We're going to be addressing ideas to make that happen, especially in the manufacturing space. So, hey, sign me up. Faster, cheaper, better. Constantine, it always reminds me of remember the old show, The $6 Million Man?
Of course. Steve Austin.
What do you think inflation has taken that price to?
$6 million man. I don't know, maybe like $70 million.
Probably so. Probably so. But folks, be sure to join us tomorrow. We're going to make it really easy. I'm joined by my dear friends, special co-host Allison Giddens, and we've got the link to this live stream with our friends from SAP and Deloitte right here, one click away, right there in the chat. Okay, and our friend Constantine Gino Pledger is here, the pride of North Alabama. Hope this finds you well, Gino, via LinkedIn. All right. So, Constantine, it is time to get to work. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. And again, folks, we're gonna tackle a couple of news stories on the front end of the buzz here today, and then about 12:30 or so, maybe a little bit before, we're gonna welcome in Mary Kate Soliva, and we're gonna be talking more about Typhoon Mawar and its disastrous impact across Guam and elsewhere. So join us for that, and especially how you can help. That's really, really important. All right. So, Dino, let's get started here. Our first story. So,
Yeah.
First story here, we're talking about the lithium battery industry, but this is actually, I think this is going to be a different take with some optimism. So y'all don't let us lose you yet. This comes from our friends at the Wall Street Journal. Now I'm going to open this, Constantine, before I get your take, with a couple of did you knows. The first did you know, 92% of the world's lithium supply comes from 3 countries, Australia, Chile, and China. Also, did you know demand for lithium batteries is projected to increase by almost 6 times by 2030, when that market, the battery market, should reach $52 billion. So with all of that demand, and really not quite a monopoly, but with so much of it coming from just 3 countries for some a variety of reasons, folks may be surprised to hear one new source being examined that might help build more batteries. So, Constantine, tell us more.
Well, I think, what you're saying here, Scott, it just rings true of the question of lithium. And, we all know that lithium is a main crucial component for electric vehicles, for the batteries, because we're wondering why is there just sudden increase. And, a lot of companies are researching and exploring kind of different ways or unconventional ways of looking at finding or extracting that now. And one of the ways they're doing that, and again, I'm not an expert in this topic, but the idea behind where they've mined for these traditionally has now come fast forward to say, well, we might have a different way of doing something that we've used in the past. And I think the one thing that the article points out is that they're looking at oil and gas reservoirs to meet this demand. So if you imagine when you're extracting oil, and in the past they would have a lot of residual minerals from these areas of where they were extracting these from, and now they're saying, hey, there might be some technologies that we could apply, or new approaches we can actually make more use of this. And they call this brine. If you think like brine with salt water, if you take a brine of other things,
right?
And the reservoirs that contains this lithium has a huge opportunity that to go back where they might have already taken the oil out. And I think one of the main points they're making in the article is that there's 2 traditional ways of extracting lithium.
Right.
One is that they were saying is this rock of mining, and that's where a lot of that's being done in China, where there's this concern over a lot of the chemical waste that's produced from the traditional way of doing it.
Sure.
And there was a certain word that I found, and I want to make sure I get it spelled right. So for those geologists that are out there, because there are majors in geology, I think it was called spodumene, hard rock mining of lithium. So that was one source, and that was the big issue, was creating chemical waste. The other is called solar evaporation. And this is where they kind of take the mine and there's an evaporation process. But the problem that they've talked about there is that there's often issues because of water scarcity, and there's low recovery rates of the lithium. So they're talking about this new method in using, and they're calling it direct lithium extraction. And it's a process of removing the lithium, as we were talking about before, from the oil field brine, and that it allows us to be more effective in have multi-case purposes of when you're doing it from oil extraction now to also lithium. So it's kind of an interesting, I guess, development where they're trying to apply these technologies to improve stuff that they've already had started.
I love it. What a great article. And I think some newer spins on industry that everyone knows is growing left and right because of all the
Mhm.
demand for a variety of different reasons, EV and beyond. But to spike the football on a couple of points you made, this direct extraction you're talking about, not so it can be cleaner. They're still working on a variety of applications. It can be cleaner. It can produce a much higher yield. One part of this, and I'll pull the article back up again from our friends at Wall Street Journal,
Mhm.
talks about how concentrating lithium in brine ponds can take a year and a half, and it can only recover sometimes about 50% of the lithium. And some of the brine, some of the direct extraction that you're referring to, and what the whole article is faced on is focused on, could offer recovery and yield as much as 90% and be cleaner. And the other thing that of course, if this all pans out, no pun intended, you probably can't pan for lithium, but if all this stuff pans out, imagine how we can really spread out lithium production and spread out, embrace it more across North America as almost like a byproduct of oil and gas, or
Yeah.
we'll see kind of how the back and forth goes. But I thought this was a great, innovative, interesting read, and looking forward to seeing how this plays out. Right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think part of it too is that it provides another use case for the petroleum industry, as they're already doing this. They're now going to be able to apply another, and we're talking about revenue, right? So rather than making this a compliance issue and a forced issue from a regulation,
Mm,
they're finding innovative ways to apply things that they've already been doing and using that with the innovations that are happening with this EV. That's, I think, a great aspect to this. The
agreed.
problem, one of the challenges I think too that we do need to call out, is that often the adoption of this is very tailored depending upon what is in this brine, like what the
Mm,
residuals are, and they have to fine tune it. So we would almost call it a bespoke process, depending upon where we're trying to apply this direct lithium extraction, and that might have a higher operating cost for that, because of the way that, and this is still a developing technology, but again, because of the interest, we know that money comes in, innovation creates new ways and better ways, and that is I think what makes this exciting, rather than relying on the three countries you mentioned, and approaching it in a way that's more sustainable. So you're
right.
killing many birds with one stone. I don't know if that's PC to say anymore,
Don't
but
kill my birds, Dino. Don't kill my birds, man.
no, I
Hey,
won't. We are both bird people, as we discovered
yes,
last week, correct?
definitely. I really enjoyed that conversation too. Hey, but kidding aside,
Yes.
as an excellent point, and as Gino says, definitely value add for petroleum suppliers. And there's a lot of moving pieces, but what is inarguable is that 6x growth in demand. This is going to be the first, probably, of many and many of creative and entrepreneurial and innovative ways at helping to meet that demand. Tons and
Mhm.
tons, whether you like it or not, tons and tons of money can be made in the battery business for sure. Okay, and by the way, Masawer, great to have you here via LinkedIn. Hello, welcome back after joining after a long time, he says. But hey, getting back to the article, don't take our word for it. Check it out for yourself. Let us know what you think. We got the link to it right there in the chat. Okay, so Constantine, are you ready to dive into the second topic
Yes.
here today? All right, so let's talk ports and freight and shipping and all kinds of stuff here. All right, let me grab this graphic here. So, have you been keeping your eye, Constantine, on what's going on the West Coast?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's, I guess, the largest ports that we have, right? You've got
Well,
all the
y-
ports that are there. What, Los Angeles, Long Beach, Oakland.
so all the cool kids.
Yes.
So, Constantine, I want to talk. Let's talk about what's going on there. So negotiations continue between the Longshore Workers Union, and the port operators up and down the West Coast, to your point, as Supply Chain Dive reports. Now, 5 ports in California and Washington experienced issues as they didn't meet normal operations last week, at least as recently as Friday, due to some degree of a workforce shortage. The Port of Oakland, in particular, is reported to have suffered the biggest disruption of all. And on Friday, its international terminals were closed throughout the day. So a lot of eyes will be on the West Coast ports today to see if operational issues continue while the negotiators fight to get a deal done. One last point, Constantine, before I get your take here. The longshore workers unions say it is nothing intentional and deliberate, but a lot of folks don't take their statements to the bank. We'll see. But Constantine, your take on what's going on here on the West Coast ports?
Well, I think, and just reading that article and just kind of some of the others that were related to it, is that it goes back to, I think it even kind of goes back to the COVID and the labor shortage and the pressures that these longshoremen are feeling in terms of trying to turn things around. This might go back to the question of automation versus human labor and all that, but because of those pressures, these people are feeling the strain of more work with less people. It's a dynamic that we're experiencing in a lot of other industries that are labor intensive. And, there's a lot of pressure that needs to be put here because that could put a stranglehold, as we noticed from COVID, on the ability to bring material and finished product to the United States. So, the other thing I heard is because of some of these disputes, there have even been some shipping that has gone around and avoided the West Coast and gone onto the East Coast. So it's interesting where this development might take shape. I'm sure they're going to resolve it at some point, but does this require some kind of executive intervention at some point? Does it get that serious? I don't know, but this is kind of the bullwhip effect of COVID. I don't know if you want to use that appropriate term, but that might be a residual of what we're still seeing from that.
Yep. And we've been talking about the port volumes and the shifts for years now. What you brought up there, because one coast's loss is oftentimes another coast's gain. Port of Houston, the Gulf has grown dramatically. The Charleston port in South Carolina, of course, the Savannah ports here and the ports of Georgia, and many others. But the interesting thing here is what I've also heard, and what maybe the article touched on, and certainly other news reporting touched on, is a lot of folks are looking at those big profits over the last couple of years that the shipping companies have made, and want a piece of that. To your point, Constantine, because of all the work and how those incredible people kept things going. But if Greg was here, because we've had this conversation before, he would also point to the lean years, when that profit looks a lot different, and how no one wants part of that, right? So, of course, not making light of the labor negotiations, but it'll be interesting to see what plays out as we try to keep all of our ports moving, which of course keeps consumers, keeps families, and keeps the economy moving. You're the last thought, Dina, before we change gears quite a bit here.
Well, I think part of the thing that we need to consider here is just the wider macroeconomic dynamics of inflation, right? Of how different supply chains are. I mean, if COVID was that pivotal moment that we're going to remember in the history books, of where we were in a historical low inflation for how many years? We didn't even think about how these things came here. The offshoring, the China manufacturing. We know there's jobs that were lost as a result of manufacturing, but now we're seeing other incidents or other related factors because of that. And with the increased costs of energy, with the increased costs of labor force, and the cost of inflation in general, this has created a new level of attention. Is this a repeat of the 70s? I mean, it's not the same. There's no way the same dynamics because of technology and other things. But that's where we need to kind of consider this. Is this the new gold? Is supply chain in this sense now so critical and so important because of how quick things need to happen
Mm.
that we need to take more attention to this issue.
Excellent point, Dino. All right, so folks, again, we've dropped a link to one of these latest updates right here from our friends at Supply Chain Dive, and who knows, maybe there'll be some breaking news today or this week as the negotiations are still underway. All right, so shifting gears, Constantine. So it's been heartbreaking to see the disaster caused by Typhoon Mawar. In fact, it's been, from what I've seen, reported the strongest storm to hit Guam in at least 20 years. Constantine, man. So, for more on this disaster, including some ways that you can help, I want to welcome in a very special guest, part of the Supply Chain Now family, Mary Kate Soliva, host of our Veteran Voices series. Mary Kate, good morning. I hope this finds you well in light of what we're going to be talking about here in a minute, but great to have you here today.
Thank you so much. Hi, Scott. Hi, Constantine.
Hi.
Well, hey, we've known you for a long time, a fellow veteran. I think if you're still, and if I get this wrong, my apologies. I think you're still serve in the U.S. Army Reserve. Is that right, Mary Kate?
That's right. Yes, Scott. Mm-hmm.
The heart of a servant leader. I admire all the different ways that you give back and give forward, as we call it here. Of course, you host our Veteran Voices programming, and in about a year and a half ago, founded the Guam Human Rights Initiative. So you're doing so much good work here. But tell us about, as we get started, tell us about your special ties to Guam.
Yes, and I appreciate you inviting me in on such short notice, Scott, to be able to support those impacted in Guam by this super typhoon. And so my ties to Guam, I'm actually a Chamorro descent, so my family is there now, and even my in-laws, but my immediate family and my friends are still in Guam. And I also graduated from the University of Guam. So my co-founder, Dr. Erica Anderson, we're both graduates of the University of Guam, and it's really means a lot to us to be able to have started the Guam Human Rights Initiative. The intention of that was to really highlight human rights issues impacting Guam and the region. And so now, since the super typhoon, to be able to give back at this time means a great deal to us.
I'm really, on behalf of our entire Supply Chain Now team and extended family, prayers, best wishes. I hope we get the recovery going even faster, and I appreciate how you're reacting, like basically overnight, if not same hour, to help out. We'll touch on that here momentarily. But Constantine, before Mary Kate shares more about what she's hearing from her family and what she's seeing and hearing across Guam, times like this is how we've got to come together, and how the supply chain community is usually in a good spot, a special spot to actually help in bigger ways than many other parts of global business. Your initial thoughts here, Dino?
Yeah, I think it's great that we're able to use this platform as a way to get a great attention to the issue. As a territory, it's a part of the United States. It's sad that we haven't heard more about it and understanding what we can do to help. I think this is a similar situation that happened when was in Puerto Rico, which is much closer to the continental United States. But I think this is something that we just need to raise our awareness of, because it's just so important, so devastating. And as climate change is sometimes causing some of these hurricanes, and I think they call them typhoons, I guess, on the west side, and hurricanes on the east side, that this is something we just need to be more aware of, and how can we help prevent or do more for the folks that are in Guam because of our connection through the United States.
Completely agree. So Mary Kate, let's feel free to piggyback on any of those comments there. And I know you and I have talked about the awareness piece going back quite some time.
Yes.
So feel free to comment on that. And then of course we want to hear more of what you're seeing and hearing in terms of the damage and a lot of the suffering going on right now.
Yes, thank you. And Constantine, just great points. And what Scott, when he says highlight, even for our listeners, we're just finding that a lot of folks, even our fellow Americans, don't even know that Guam exists. So to highlight the U.S. territories that you even mentioned, Puerto Rico and some of the natural disasters that have impacted them. Guam has been impacted by typhoons, but as you mentioned, Scott, this is the super typhoon that hit, the largest to hit in the last 20 years. So again, even with Guam, we have the big U.S. Navy base there, and we have the big U.S. Air Force Base, as well as the Guam Air and Army National Guard that have been activated to support and relief efforts. So we do recruit a lot into our U.S. military from Guam, and it's just such a significant part of, and we are Americans. So to be able to help and highlight what's going on right now, Guam has been without water, and they've been on limited supply. So even though the water was turned back on, they are still limited in rationing out their water supply, but most of the island is still without power, which is greatly impacting our Manumku, which are our elders on island. So doing what we can as far as those on the ground, collecting supplies and removing debris, but especially seeing how we can get back to those who have lost everything, who've lost their homes at this time.
So, Mary Kate, you were sharing a few things pre-show, and I want to, of course, respect you and your family's privacy. But you mentioned because that we're waiting for the power grid to come all the way back, folks have, to get air conditioning because of a variety of medical conditions. A lot of folks are sleeping in their cars with having their AC on. Is that right, Mary Kate?
Yes, and actually, I was just watching a clip before we came on live as well. That was actually bringing tears to my eyes, just because this is very real, very raw right now. But I do have family that are staying in their vehicles just for the sake of having air conditioning. And there was like 2 days straight in a row where I couldn't reach some of my family because they had no power, and there was no way to get a hold of them. So to charge their phones, they're in their vehicles. Not everybody has generators, and some who do, they're broken. So the fact that especially our elderly with our underlying health conditions having to stay in their vehicles, just very, just unacceptable how long it's taking. So those who are doing what they can to support one another.
So Constantine, that is, man, it's heartbreaking. Respond to what we're hearing here from Mary Kate in terms of the conditions there on the ground in Guam.
Well, I mean, you bring up the humanitarian crisis, which is, clear and obvious here with the situation going on. And how long does that take, considering how far it is from the continental U.S.? I don't know how that works with the logistics with other places, say like Australia or other allies that we have. That's just one thought. I don't know if you can opine on that, Mary Kate, on understanding where are the resources coming from, how are things coming to help from a first aid standpoint. The other is just, again, because of being a part of the United States and how strategic the location is. You and I were talking about this, Scott, a little bit about the fact of how the geopolitics of the Pacific region has changed so much in recent years. How important it is, and how we need to again rely on the folks in Guam and how in the military that's there and supporting our interests strategically as well. So I mean, there's so many levels: humanitarian, geopolitical. I'm sure there's numbers of others that I haven't thought of, but that's why this is really important.
Yeah, Mary Kate. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mary Kate.
I was going to say, and just for our listeners who don't know, like Guam's probably about the size of Chicago or even like San Francisco Bay. If you think about the size of it, only about 212 square miles. So we have just over 160,000 people. So it's not very big, but in the sense of the community and that the fact that they're just so resilient, are the people of Guam and what they're doing to come together. Even the mayors are using, pulling money out of their own pockets to be able to support their people to be able to buy water. But we're really looking as far as government and federal help. The White House did, and President Biden did put out that proclamation of calling it an emergency. So we have been getting support. FEMA has been coming out there. I know Team Rubicon is out there as well as the military being activated to support such efforts. But we are closer. Guam is closer to the Philippines and to Southeast Asia than they are. A lot of times we think of Hawaii as our touch point. The airlines are bringing in, and the port is open again. So there is cargo regards coming in that way. But again, the movement has been very slow, and the just basic necessities up and running again has been taking way too long.
So Mary Kate, you were just in Guam. I want to say maybe 6-8 months ago. Is that about right?
Yeah, just this past year.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping, we're all hoping that we can act more with everyone's interests, right? Collective interests, and get the aid needed, and get all the wells for the water back online, the power grid going, even the technology. As you mentioned, Mary Kate, a couple of days went by when you couldn't connect with your family. All the cell phone infrastructure's got to be reworked and brought back online. All right. So, Mary Kate, let's talk about uh, what Guam Human Rights Initiative. Y'all set up a special focused initiative to help with aid. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so as we mentioned about the Guam Human Rights Initiative, co-founder Dr. Erica Anderson and I, we're both alumni of the University of Guam, and the University of Guam has put up their Tritons, helping Tritons, and so we are looking to support them as well as some of the other local organizations and agencies on island. So we've started a fundraiser campaign for the next 19 days to raise $1,000. And I'm happy to say that just before we went live, Scott, that we've already raised, a couple $100 there. So it's really great the amount of help we've had just since we just launched this campaign. But if you are able to support the relief efforts, I mean, this really hits close to home because we are such a small island. We're not kidding when we say we really do know one another. You can't go to the grocery store without running into an auntie or a cousin. So it's just, again, to be able to come together and support, including, our military families that are on island as well. So thank you so much, Scott and Constantine, for, inviting me to join you both today to amplify this.
Well, Mary Kate, absolutely. That's the absolute least we can do is help get the word out. And folks, we dropped the link to Mary Kate and Dr. Anderson, right?
Erica Anderson, yes, my best friend. We actually met in grad school, but again, it just kind of a little bit fun, a separate story of how we met. But again, just the fact she just recently finished her PhD, and we're just aligned in forces in giving back to our fellow Tritons and the people of Guam. So thank you again. And this is to supplies, like they're in need of even, like I said, without the power, just in need of flashlights, even the shelters need of clothing. Of course, the food, like I said, without the power, a lot of the food has been going bad. The water, needing those cases of water as well. So we're just, supporting financially as we can those of us who are off island. And because we don't want to be asking those on island, they're already spread thin with resources and funding. So we are turning to those in the U.S. mainland and those abroad to be able to support the people of Guam.
Well, really, as always, you've got an incredible track record of servant leadership with results and outcomes. Hey, before you depart, so Constantine, I think you and Mary Kate both may know Sylvia Judy, one of our faves around here. Talk about servant leadership and folks that get things done, especially for others. So, Mary Kate, Hafa, help me pronounce.
Half a day.
Half a day. Okay, is that what does that translate to?
It's like saying hello, or aloha, like in Hawaii. A lot of folks do aloha, but half a day, Sylvia. And it's just, we're great with half a day because I actually had a general tell me recently. He said, I went to Guam once and someone said half a day to me, and he said, no, I'm going to work a full day. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's the oldest joke in the trick in the book, but it's so funny. Again, the spirit of Guam.
Well, Mary Kate Soliva with the Guam Human Rights Initiative. Really admire all that you do. We want to get the word out. Folks, you can also connect. If you're not connected and if you're not following Mary Kate, especially on LinkedIn, some of the best content you're going to come across, be sure to do that. And, of course, Veteran Voices. I think we're close to wrapping up our 4th season, Mary Kate. Holy cow.
It's going by fast, but incredible. Again, just to be able to amplify the voices of veterans serving beyond the uniform with Veteran Voices. I was on active duty. I realized, Scott, I hit my 14-year mark. Can't believe it. But I'm still serving in the reserves now. But again, just the people of Guam that have served. We've had soldiers from Guam who have been killed in action. We have had soldiers who have fought in combat veterans still living in Guam. So again, this is so much greater than just like this typhoon, but to be able to recognize Guam exists, that we are part of the American people, and we've proudly served. So again, just support the people of Guam in our campaign. But thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Mary Kate Soliva with GHRI, and y'all check out the Super Typhoon Mawar Relief. Mary Kate, we'll see you again real soon.
Take care, Suzu Spasi. Thank you.
Constantine, I tell you, Mary Kate is a very special leader, but in these cases, you just want to reach out and fix stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's folks like her you have so much respect for, the dedication. And then now when they're saying, hey, we're in a time of need, raising awareness, right? And it's an education. I think it's just understanding what we're paying attention to and what we value is important. And it's great. It's amazing what you've been able to accomplish.
It is remarkable. And, Guam's interests are our interests, and we've got to fix stuff over there and fix it faster, to Mary Kate's point. Okay. And Sylvia, and Sylvia, I'm looking forward to connecting with you soon. So Constantine, Sylvia, I believe, if she's not already there, she'll be there soon, is going to be back in Germany. And Sylvia, if I'm letting the cat out of the bag, my apologies, but her father has spent, I think, his entire career in the ocean freight industry.
Okay.
And so we're going to get together with Sylvia and her father and hopefully share some stories from, if he hadn't written a book, he needs to. I bet he has got lots and lots of stories. So Sylvia, safe travels. If you're in transit, I look forward to reconnecting soon. Okay, Constantine, we have got, we'll give you anything else you want to add before we shift gears and talk about something that is not nearly as important. Any of your final thoughts around what's going on in Guam and what folks got to do to help recover?
I wish I did. I think part of me is just to also just get more educated across, I guess, all the territories, including Guam, and just knowing what how do we help? How do we get involved? And, I think it's just a great opportunity using your platform to do this.
Agreed. So folks, check out the Guam Human Rights Initiative, special project for Super Typhoon Mawar Relief. You'll be better off when you do. All right. So switching gears on a much, much lighter note, I want to bring this graphic in because we're going to be talking about automation. On the front end, Constantine, the stories really come together nicely because we were talking about the need for automating on the front end. And so that really tees this story up here. So neat read from CNBC. They interviewed Jeff Bernstein. I think I've got that right.
Mm-hmm.
President of the Association for Advancing Automation. Now he might have certain allegiances there, but they asked him his thoughts on what sectors automation might tackle next. So Jeff said his picks were three of them: agriculture, food processing, and healthcare. Now, he points to a couple examples. Now, this will make my father-in-law, Fred Midkiff, very happy. In agriculture, Deere & Company, maker of the big brand, successful industry leader, John Deere tractors. Well, they're already developing an autonomous tractor. Constantine, how about that? So we may see, just like that image we're looking at, a tractor moving and doing stuff, tilling stuff, whatever, with no one at the wheel.
Yeah.
Now, in food processing, we spoke some 2 years ago about how Tyson Foods was investing over $1 billion in new automation technologies. Many other players in that industry are. Now, Tyson has 50 fully automated lines right now for deboning chickens. And the interesting thing about that, Dino, and get your take here, is I've known for a long time. I've had some folks in that industry, and that they all talked about just how dangerous it is, right? So a lot of this automation is helping to make some of the work safer, including for the folks that regardless of automation, that still be a part of it, and the yields increasing, yielding more good meat that is used and sold, and you name it. But your thoughts, Constantine, on what we're seeing from a what's next for automation standpoint.
Well, on the farming front, I got a little bit of education about farming. I was watching the show on Prime, Amazon Prime, with Clarkson's Farm. I don't know if you're familiar with Jeremy Clarkson, the guy who's famous for the British automation show that he got kicked off of. He was talking about Top Gear. It was the show.
Top Gear.
And he created another show on Amazon Prime, but he went off and created his own farm. And the education around that is how expensive and how much it can cost to run a farm, and where the profit margins are and what you need to do to maintain that. And I don't know if this is the agribusiness aspect or even it's the personal, and how this automation can even help the individual farmer. But it's just amazing how can we create these efficiencies to create these higher yields, especially with food production becoming such a critical thing, doing it more efficiently, doing it more effectively, and using autonomous vehicles for that, to me is a great opportunity. And it helps the farmer, I think, in the farms to be able to be more effective at what they're doing. So that farm part of it is cool. And then the food piece, what was interesting in reading the article is they were talking about, I didn't even think about this, but when you're in the line, people that might have food allergies that are working the line, or sneezing, or like that, you think about the health of the person working. Where does that all kind of fall in? And this autonomous piece might be there. And also, it's just, I can't imagine like what it would smell like in those things. I mean, it's just some of those dynamics just takes it away from humans to have to interact with that and have them have other types of jobs that are like more value add, I guess.
Well, plus the shifts that's going on out there in the workforce, right? Folks that where we were even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, more and more from the active generations that companies are building a workforce around. They don't want to do a lot of that stuff more and more. I mean, and it grows a little bit every day. So let me bring in Greg. Greg, great to have you here. He knows the thing. I think he is in one of his ventures is in the agriculture space. Greg says they are developing a farm implement that will map out a field of crop plants and then spot fertilize the plant and laser blast the weeds. Man, that is cool. That reminds me, I'm gonna pull this image back up, this driverless tractor.
Yes.
So peaches, Georgia has become synonymous for the peach industry, right? Constantine, when you think of peaches, do you think of Georgia?
Well, when you're driving through Atlanta, every other street's peach tree.
Right.
Yes, for sure.
Well, did you know that South Carolina actually produces more peaches than the state of Georgia? Right.
I did not know that.
And I need to look at probably the 2022 figures, but as of like 2020, 2021. But they've got, I think it's for the peach industry. Otherwise, all that setup goes for naught. But they've got those machines these days that carefully will grab the tree, and I know it's being used in other nut industries, and it shakes. So a lot of the fruit will fall down, and it's easier to gather, right, for the workforce. So that's probably been around for decades. But that one of the first thoughts, and thank you, Sylvia, to my rescue. South Carolina has more peaches. Thank you. It's official now. Sylvia has audited my claims, and it is official. South Carolina produces more peaches. But Constantine, it's based on, it's kind of like going back to the battery deal, right? Mm-hmm. We know demand is going to be at least 6x, from now until 2030. So companies obviously are going to find a way to address it, right? Make money, run their operation. Similar challenge with workforces, right? We know it's getting tougher and tougher to find folks to do some of these tasks that they don't want to do anymore. So naturally, companies are going to find a way using automation and other ways that the business will evolve to address that gap. Your final thoughts here around the ongoing tidal wave. It's only getting bigger. Automation.
Well, one of the third part, we didn't talk about what I do want.
Healthcare. Yeah.
The healthcare is, I saw an interesting aspect. There was a call out of one of the companies, I think it was called Aethon, a robotics company. And what they're doing is they're using the robots to then deliver through the delivery system in the logistics of having it, whatever the medicines, or there's other aspects of going to different parts of the hospital, maybe where it needs to be secured or more sanitary. And then I think this company's also doing this in the industry around the hoteling industry, where they're delivering like towels and things like that. But as it relates to healthcare, I think that's just phenomenal, especially if you're going to be dealing with hazardous materials. And again, it all goes back to the labor shortage. We have a shortage of nurses, we have a shortage of technicians. This is a great way to do it. And when I was looking at the machines that they use, it reminded me of my visit to Purdue in West Lafayette, where we saw these things moving around delivering pizza. Well, I mean, very similar concept, right? I mean, you hear about this, but this is at that level where we're now seeing this in the healthcare industry. And this has so many use cases that it's just phenomenal to see that this is kind of being applied now in the hospital settings or other healthcare areas.
So I agree with you. Of course, the healthcare industry will be an interesting one to see how they embrace, especially the robotics thing. That portion of the article, for me, just for my brain, and I'm a little bit slower than you are, Dino, but I didn't see as much of an instant, easy to understand, practical example. But there will be, undoubtedly. But going back to that pizza delivery, let me just tell you, in the Luton household, maybe like your household, Limberakis household, we're big fans of pizza.
Yes.
Right? Big fans of pizza. But let's make any bots that are delivering pizza, let's make them very friendly looking, because some of those bots I've seen that you're not going to want to open the door, especially if it's not a drop like was so prevalent during COVID, right? Folks dropped on your porch and then they were out. Maybe, they can keep them mean looking if that's what they're going to do, but I am not opening a door to some of those things that are delivering pizzas right now. What about, have you seen some of these? I mean, like, they look like they got blades. They're like 8 feet tall. They don't have nice face features. I mean, it's terrifying.
Are you trying to anthropomorphize the robot? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yes.
I've never ordered it via that. I only saw that from the distance, and my nephew pointed that out. He's like, "Hey, listen," he's like, "Uncle," he's like, he calls me Dino, and he goes, "Uncle Dino," he goes, "Look, that's a pizza." I'm like, and you see these things rolling around. I just thought it was fascinating. I haven't encountered that yet. Maybe it's the drones too, with the drone pizza. I don't know.
It might be. Well, any robot, full blown humanoid looking robot that's delivering pizza to our front doors, we gotta give them like a teddy bear costume or something, and then, hey, all day long, thank you very much, nice tip, and we'll be on our way.
Let's just not make it look too creepy.
No clowns, Constantine, no clowns.
Please.
All right. This has been a lot of fun on the news side. On the serious side, man. Again, folks, y'all, I tell you, if you're not in position, this will be my challenge to our listening audience, wherever they are. Constantine, is, hey, if you're not in position to find a way to help, whether it's via Mary Kate's humanitarian, really stand up overnight project, which I admire so much, true bias for action, and there's others, right? American Logistics Aid Network also comes to mind, a nonprofit doing great work, including support hurricanes and storms everywhere. But Constantine, I think the thing I'm glad came up today is a lack of awareness for what's going on in Guam and the need and the recovery. As Mary Kate puts it, it needs to happen faster. So even if you can't donate or anything, just get more informed, seek out that news, seek out what's going on there and what needs to happen. Constantine, your thoughts here before we wrap.
Yeah. Again, as I mentioned earlier on the show, it's a great opportunity for us to leverage channels like this. And we talked about social media. I mean, that's it. It's a new way of getting the stories out, and we're not relying on traditional means to do it. So I think it's fantastic that you're able to use this as a way to get the story out.
Agreed. So y'all check that out. The link is one click away there. Make sure you connect with Mary Kate Soliva and the Guam Human Rights Initiative and Veteran Voices Programming, which I think we're going to share that link. But hey, Constantine, beyond all of that, how can folks connect with you and all the cool things you're up to?
Well, I guess it's the LinkedIn. So, connect with me on LinkedIn. Some of the things I like to post out there, some of the articles, always open for conversation and thoughts on innovation and what's happening in supply chains and procurement, and always happy to have a conversation.
We are too. I enjoy those conversations. So big thanks to, first off, big thanks to Mary Kate Soliva for joining us on almost on a whim, especially as busy as she and all the stuff going on there. So big thanks to Mary Kate Soliva. Big thanks to Constantine Limberakis for filling in for Greg White here today. Always a pleasure, Gino.
Pleasure as well as on my side too.
And folks, thank you, everyone for showing up and dropping comments, from Jose to Sylvia, Greg, Jacob, you name it. Always enjoy that component of our Supply Chain Buzz live streams. You can find us every Monday at 12 noon Eastern time. And if you're listening to this, hey, come check us out real time and bring your POV with you. So on behalf of our entire team here at Supply Chain Now, hey, challenging you, Scott Luton, the whole team here, challenging you, hey, put the need, put it in a headlock and do something with it. It's about deeds, not words. Help others out, do good, give forward, and be the change. And we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.